Okay, so today we're going to make two mini pinch pots. So I have my golf ball here and my lemon here so that you can see approximately what size balls of clay to make to start. Again, because we're new, we're starting small. So I'm first going to take my smaller piece of clay that I already used my string to cut my off of my block of clay. By the way, if I haven't said this already, make sure your big block of clay, the bag stays closed, because as we've learned from our pet sculpture, if you don't cover it with plastic, it will dry out, and we don't want our big block of clay to dry out. So again, I'm making this into as neat of a ball as I can. The neater the ball to start, the better. Look at that, almost perfect amount of clay. And I'm going to do the same thing with this. Now if I am going to use my lemon as a good measuring tool. So if there's too much clay, I'm just going to take some of it off and put it off to the side. Use my fist to kind of try to make that round. Okay. Now, usually at the beginning of a pottery semester, we talk about wedging clay. Because we do not have a wedging table, and I'm not sure where you're working, I'm just going to not worry about that right now because we're not sure if we're firing these yet or not. So for now, I've got a small ball of clay and a medium. I think this is pretty good. I mean, if I shaped it into the lemon, it's probably about the correct amount of clay. So if you look at my little picture here, I have to figure out which way. You're starting with your piece of clay, you're making it round, and then you're going to push your thumb in. So I'm just going to start with the little one. And I literally just cut my fingernails because I knew I don't want to get clay under my nails. If you have super long nails, you can use your knuckle if if you get the nail tips. So you can use your knuckle or maybe a tool. But I'm going to go ahead and push my thumb in there, just like that, to make a hole. And then I'm going to pinch around the sides. And as I do this, because my thumbs are stronger, I'll put my thumb on the inside and I'm going to pinch the outside, the outer edge. And I could use either hand. I'm trying to figure out which view is better with the camera here. And notice as I pinch, I'm rotating. And I'm not pinching so hard that the walls are becoming very too thin. And I'm also pinching towards the bottom of my clay so that I have a nice even pinch, even wall, I guess. So the trick with a pinch pot is to have even amount of pressure as you pinch. Let me just turn this up a little bit. And so this side here is a little bit weaker. So what I can do is just kind of push that clay into each other and just make the clay a little bit thicker over there by pulling it with my thumb, the clay from the side. So I'm going to put this down and rotate and pinch. Now, I know what I'm going to do with this later, so I'm not going to make it too big, and I don't want it to be too thin. I always say a good rule of thumb is no thinner than a pen, right? So if I take a pen or a pencil, I don't want to go too much thinner. Now you could, but the thinner you go, the chances are you're going to start to collapse. So for my pinch pot, I'm going to try to smooth it around. And, again, this is your first pinch pot, so, trying to get it symmetrical is going to be hard, but try. Just keep rotating. Notice how I just keep rotating it, and now I'm smoothing it. I'm going to put this upside down and kind of go that way. Now, one of the tools, you don't really need tools to do pinch pots, but I just want to show you, this is one of my favorite tools. Actually, a wooden spoon would be even better because it's a little bit heavier. I can slap this and rotate it if I wanted to get rid of any areas that aren't symmetrical. So this is one of my favorite ways. Usually you would do this when the clay is a little bit set up, meaning like a day or two later, the clay is not quite so soft. When you first take it out of the bag, it's pretty soft. But I like that. Now I have like a little bit of a flat lip from laying it face down on my wood block. So again, I'm just going to use my finger and smooth that out. And I'm going to say, okay, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to set this aside. Oh, if you get cracks like that, sometimes it means your clay is drying out if it's towards the end of the period. But I know in this case, I just did it pretty quickly. It's just, I can just smooth that over. But if it does start to get dried out, you can just take some of our slip, which is that dried out clay with water, and just kind of add a little bit of water. Now I don't usually do this early because you don't want too much water. This can start to get really slippery and really messy. So less is more in this case, especially when you're starting out. But if you find that you're getting a lot of cracks and it's bothering you, you can go ahead and add just a little bit. You notice I literally just put a drop of water or slip on my finger. Okay, so now I'm going to set that aside and do the same thing with the larger clay. Now I'm curious to see how much harder it is for you because you're working larger. And again, I'm going to try my knuckle because I'm going to pretend like I have long fingernails and punch in there. My hands aren't strong enough. So maybe if you have nails, use a pen or use something to get in there. I'm just going to rotate it so it's large enough for me to get my finger in there. The other thing you could do is use maybe a paper towel. Again, this is for people with long fingernails, or like a rag, and wrap it around your finger, called a ShamWow usually in the classroom, and then you can do it that way and start to pinch. This way it'll prevent your nail from breaking, but that's only with those with super long fake nails. The rest of us, we can either, just suffer through or cut our fingernails like I did. My first pottery class actually wasn't until grad school, where I went to Montclair State to get my education degree for my master's. And the first day, the professor looked at everyone and said, the first thing you have to do is cut your nails. So the second day, there were about 5 girls that were no longer in the class. They dropped the class because they had the fake nails. But she was right. Like, to really do pottery properly, it's hard. It's a lot harder to do with long nails, but you can still do it. It's not, I'm certainly not making that a requirement for this course. Okay, so notice I'm still pinching and rotating, but my walls are still really thick, and especially on the outside, like down at the bottom. A lot of students here, I'm just going to cut this in half just to show you. Actually, let me do it on purpose here. So a lot of students, what they do is they pinch up here, right? And then they abandon the bottom. So let me show you what happens. And the key to a good pinch pot is to have even walls all around, not just on the sides, but on the bottom as well. So I could look at this and say, okay, I can tell this is going in almost like a V shape, but on the outside it's more cylindrical. So what I do is I take my string and I cut straight down the middle and cut it in half. And you can see now how it's thinner up here. I'm going to cut that even more. And thicker down here. So what you really want is for this wall to be pinched more consistently. So really what I'm looking for is a pinch pot. It doesn't necessarily have to be square in shape, but notice how now these walls are a consistent thickness, and if it starts to get too thin at the top, you can just compress at the top to make that thinner. So see how nice and consistent that is, but how this tends to, a lot of students, they pinch so much at the top that it does that. So this here is what you're looking to do, not that. So go ahead and do that, and I'm going to redo and show you later what we're doing. When you are done, I'm going to redo this one, but let's say I have both pinch pots here. Today, you're actually going to take your plastic grocery bag that should be in your bag and cover these nice and tight. You don't want any, you want as little air as possible. So a lot of times in the classroom, we'll put the board itself in the bag like this, right? And then tie it under, not tie it, but kind of tuck it underneath, so when you store it, it's stored like this. So I'm going to go ahead and redo my pinch pot, but just again, remember, you want consistent walls all the way around, similar to this.